Land transfer tax is a one-time cost, and it is definitely a closing cost. Okay. Closing means, right? It happens when you switch hands from one person to the other. So you switch owners. Okay. So here we go. Land transfer tax is a tax you pay to the Manitoba Land Titles Office. Sounds legit enough, right? At the time your home is registered on your name. So when the owner of the property changes, the person buying has to pay property taxes, land transfer taxes. Okay? It is a one-time large cost, and that's one of the good things about renting, I would say. Renting, you don't have to worry about this. But the annoying part is that the first 200,000 of the house are taxed according to this scale here that I'm going to talk about in a bit. And then any amount over is just flat out 10%, 2%, sorry. So here we go. I would like you to have this table on a very small scale on your study sheet, and I'll tell you why in a bit. But the first $30,000 of any property gets zero taxes. I guess that's just zero, right? As a decimal. This column I inserted, they will not give you that. The province has said that they will give you this part, but they will not give you the decimal part. So the tricky part is that the next $60,000 of value are taxed 0.5%. What is that as a decimal? 0.5 divided by 100? It's 0.005. This is the biggest mistake right here, that students just take the 0.5 because they're like, hey, it's a decimal, I'll just use it. But there's a percent sign behind it, so you need to divide it. Same with 1%. If you divide 1% by 100, you get 0.01. If you divide 1.5% by 100, you get 0.015. And then 2%, it's just flat 0.02. So these are the numbers that I'm going to use a lot. And I have a breakdown for you, and I'm using a lot of colors here. Let me bring this up a little bit. Okay. So the first 30K, you don't pay any taxes on that. Good luck finding a property these days that is 30,000 or less, right? But you don't pay on the first 30,000. On the next $60,000, right? If you think of a number line, on the next 60,000, any number, any amount that goes in here pays 0.5% of land transfer tax. And I really hope they would get rid of this scale. It would make our lives so much easier. On the next 60K, which is this portion right here, you pay 1% of taxes. And the last one, the last chunk here, before it's just flat 2%, is 1.5%. Let me just focus here. Before I do the math, I need you to understand what it is that I'm doing. If you were to add this up, okay, listen carefully to this part. 30 and 60 is 90,000. Plus another 60 is 150,000. Add another 50,000, it adds up to the 200,000 mark. So the first 200,000, okay, the first $200,000 get taxed according to this grid, this scale. So it's not one flat percentage. Every chunk of the first 200,000 gets a certain amount. Okay. And then anything that's over 200,000 is just flat 2%. It's just a 2% flat amount. Okay? So that's how this goes. we are going to explore properties that land, let's say for example, a property is $160,000. Follow me here. 160,000 would get you to here. 160,000 gets you right here because this is the 150 mark. 160 is here. So let me use another pen here. Okay, this is 160 where my pencil is. So we'll have to calculate this chunk, that chunk, and the little bit of money that actually falls into this new bracket here. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to go through different scenarios. Most houses in Winnipeg are over 200,000, so I kind of find it pointless that they still make us do less than 200,000, but you need to know how to do it. So let's start with the easy case. Land transfer tax for a house worth 385,000. You take that number, follow me here. You take that number and you go through these chunks right here that I have for you up here. So the first $30,000, you tax it 0%. So guess how much you're gonna have to pay for that chunk? $0. That's kind of pointless, right? I hope in the future you're not gonna bother times 0, you're just gonna go 0, okay? What are you left with? Please use a calculator, okay? I don't want you to get this wrong because you missed a 0. Okay? You're left with $355,000. What's our next chunk? Up here where my pencil is? 60 grand, right? So you subtract 60,000, you're using up that entire chunk. What do we tax that? As a decimal, look up here, it's 0.005, okay? Times 0.005. Let's do the math later, let's keep going. I know I have to do this, I will keep going. So you do this line, I have 355 on my calculator, I'm gonna go minus 60,000 on it. I'm left with 295. What's the next chunk that I can subtract according to this scale here? 60K again, right? Take away 60,000. That gets taxed 1%. So it should incrementally go up. This is 0.5%, this is 1%. Let's do the math later. 295 minus 60,000 again. You're left with 235. What is the next chunk that we take away? 50,000, right? 50K. So we go minus 50,000. Oh, I forgot. What does that 50,000 get taxed again? 0.015, right? I will do the math a little later. And once I subtract the 50,000, I'm left with 185,000. And we have nothing to subtract anymore. You got to make sure you understand. It's 30, 60, 60, 50. That adds up to 200,000. And this is what's over 200,000, okay? So that gets taxed what? Flat 2%. That is going to be the amount that is the biggest usually if you buy a house, unfortunately. So now we got to do a little bit of multiplication and a little bit of addition, and then we get it. So 60,000, some of you are going to remember these numbers. This is $300 for that chunk, for this part right here. Then it's 60,000 times 0.01 times 1%. That's $600. You're going to remember this after a while. Then it's 50,000 times 0.015. That's $750. So progressively goes up, right? and now it's 185,000 times 0.02. That's 3,700. Okay. And now you're so close. What we do now is we add up all these numbers. Okay. So land transfer tax, this is the exact amount you would pay in Winnipeg, in Manitoba. I just add up all these numbers. There it is. $5,350 land transfer tax. So you got to have your down payment and you got to have this money because you're going to have to pay that. Okay, they're going to come and ask you for it. So that's a lot of money. One more example and then I'm going to hand it over to you. Okay, one more example. This is the one where we don't go over 200,000. I'm going to be a little faster on this one. Okay, calculate the land transfer tax for purchasing a house 135,000. Let's look at our number line. Where would that fall? 30 and 60 is 90, right? 135 is right about there somewhere. Okay, so this number is somewhere in here, in that chunk. So we're gonna figure out what the taxes are. So this is gonna be a lot faster. You subtract 30K. You always have to do that. That is, you're not going to pay any taxes on that. Then you're left with 105,000. We take away the 60K. So as you take away 60K, you know you're also going to have to tax that section, and this is how you figure it out. Do you remember what this is? 300? Okay, so that saves you a little bit of time. But on the exam, I would say just do it. Click, 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 just to make sure, right? Because sometimes you think you remember. And okay, here you have to be careful. 105 minus 60 is 45, right? Can you subtract? Can I go minus 60K here? No, because you're actually in here somewhere. So you stop. You stop right there. What are we going to tax these 45,000? 0.01. Yes. So stop and just tax that chunk 1%. Can you guess what that's going to be? 450. Yeah. So stop, right? Stop, because if you were to subtract, you would get a negative. You can't have negatives here. Okay. So just stop there. And what are not property tax, I have to be careful, it's a different tax yet. We can do this, right? This is 750. So quite a bit less if you stay under 200,000. Your property, land transfer tax are going to be a lot lower. Okay? Now, 56 to 57. Yeah. So 56 to 57. So in case you were sleeping, this table on your study sheet, maybe this as well. And that's basically all you need for land transfer tax on your study sheet.